Okay, so this is the first time that I am trying out this software. So this is EV and it says I'm live on YouTube, and we will see. It says I'm live. Okay, yeah, I am live on YouTube. Rad. So it works so far. I don't know how to bring your comments up. Let me. I just bought this like today, so forgive me as I muddle my way through it here. I can see the viewers, I can't see the comments. So, oh, maybe this is how. Let's see. Nope. Okay. Let's see. Bear with me just a quick second here. Internal chat. No, I don't want internal chat. I want social chat. There we go. Yo, Troy Vicious, I think. What's happening? Thanks for stopping by. Hey, how's my audio? Is my audio levels, are they all right? So I wanted to go live here, and the last live stream, I've only done a few so far, but I wanted to get one in before the new year here. And hang on, bear with me just a second. Okay, sound good to you. Great. Something that's really been kind of on my mind lately, and I have made a few videos about it, as have some other creators who are friends of mine, and that is the state of the real estate photography industry. Now, that obviously cannot be separated from just the state of the real estate industry at large. And it's important, I think, to realize that and I kind of touched on this a little bit on my last video. It's important to realize that social media clicks and views and everything, mass media in general, runs on advertising. So one of the things that really gets you those clicks is drama. And so you get the creators that are saying the sky is falling, and they oftentimes have some good justifications for it. There's certain metrics and stuff that they're using to to come to their opinion. But okay, I'm somebody who I've been in and around real estate a long time. I was a real estate agent for several years before I started shooting it professionally. I bought my first home when I was 27 years old before I got into real estate, which is really when I started paying attention more to to finance and such. Which buying a home will often lead to you paying attention and things like that. And I wanted to dispel some of the opinions out there. And there are a lot of people out there right now, I know, making a parallel to what happened in 2008 and the crash that we had then. And as it relates to real estate photography, okay, it wasn't really around the way that we do it in 2008 to take a nosedive like we've seen over the past few months. However, even though the past few months have been very slow, I'm not worried about it at all. I know that this is going to come back. So I wanted to take a brief moment, and I am going to do another video on this too. But I wanted to just kind of hash out very briefly the differences for those who do not really know what happened in 2008 versus what's happening now, and why I'm not worried about the market coming back. So, okay, in 2008, we had a crash that really was, there was a lot of reasons why it crashed, but the main reasons were um, irresponsible lending, irresponsible borrowing, and so anybody who could fog a mirror would get a loan, and it was even at a pretty good rate, because at the time everybody just kind of thought the prices have been going up so quickly since about the year 2000 that everybody thought, Well, it's gonna continue, and so these lenders, they had too much money. That's another thing that, was bad about it, is Alan Greenspan made the prime rate, too cheap for too long. They had too much money, the lenders did. They were lending it out to really anybody, and the prices, since they had accelerated so much in previous years, um, the people who were borrowing them that really were not able to afford it were doing so on adjustable rate mortgages, and so they would have, like, a teaser rate of just, like, a percent or 2 for the first 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, and kinda thing, and then it would adjust. It would adjust then to market rate. Sometimes there was terms within a loan that would show the maximum amount that it was going to adjust to. Some of the more aggressive loans, and some of these would say, "Hey, if we're gonna lend you the money at 1% for the first few years, it's gonna adjust to whatever it's gonna be after that." So what happened was, these people were barely able to afford getting these high priced homes at that teaser rate. And the line of thinking was, well, it just keeps on going up in value, so I'll refinance it before it adjusts, and so forth. Nobody thinking that it could actually unwind. These people truly couldn't afford the homes that they were borrowing on. Now, to make matters worse, okay, in the secondary mortgage market, where mortgages are often sold as investments between different financiers and such. um, it was a bunch of junk loans that were getting packaged in with a bunch of other solvent investments. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why, when this started to unwind and these people started defaulting on their mortgages, it kind of took a lot of the sectors, really the whole market, with it. It's because those loans were being packaged along with a bunch of other things in the secondary market. Now, to make matters even worse, okay, there was not at the time very good limits imposed by the SEC on volatility. So as the market started going down, and I remember there was like a period of like a few months where it seems like every single day. I mean, sometimes they just shut down the market, because it was taking like 1,000 plus points on the Dow. Like every day for a little while there, and it was scary stuff. So let's go fast forward in time, okay, and let's say right now in late 2022. None of those things are happening, okay? So, we have a different set of circumstances on our hands, and one that is not as dramatic. So, there are a couple things to keep in mind as you take a look and listen to all the talking heads and stuff, that are out there. And the first thing is, like I said, social media runs on clicks, and doom and gloom and impending crashes are always going to get the clicks. Okay. But the second thing is, this is a very normal time of year for all this to slow down anyway, right? During the holiday season. So anybody who, and there are some real aggressive ones out there that have all these charts and stuff and say, look, we're so far down from, whenever, a year ago or so. And it's like, okay, but this is a weird time of year for real estate anyway. Always has been. You never know in December, when I was buying and selling real estate, I always had deals going in December, but that I don't think was really typical. It's typically a slow time, for real estate anyway. And, the other thing about that is, we have a whole demographic of buyers now, right? So millennials are starting now to buy their first home. The Gen Zers are starting to buy their first home. And these are buyers who, in large, never really experienced any other market than the one that we've had for the past 10 years, which has been a very strong, accelerating, strong growth market, okay? With very cheap money to borrow. So they've never seen an interest rate over like 5%, on a home loan. They don't realize that even where we are now, like 7% or whatever it is, um, that's really good. Like historically, that's okay. That's about average or so, like 7 to 10%, on the interest rate. So when it comes to affordability, that obviously is still our problem, especially where I live in the Bay Area. It's very expensive to live here, but prices have come down a little bit. And here's the thing, if you're looking at a $700,000 home, okay, that last year was an $800,000 home. You could borrow the majority of that 800,000 at 3.5% versus borrowing the majority of 700,000 at 6.5%. I'll take the 100 grand cheaper. You know, like it's, I think a lot of people don't realize that is this is actually a good opportunity right now, to get it. So my point in broad strokes here is I'm not worried about this market. It's a normal thing for markets to adjust. It's going to make its move. None of the reasons that it crashed in 2008, none of them. We have limits on volatility now. Lending has been largely responsible. Most people now have equity, versus like these negative that's the other thing that I didn't really get into. On the interest only loans, okay, the principal and the full interest is still being paid, but it's going back onto the balance, right? So you're not building equity. But people have equity now, right? Because there are people who have truly qualified for these mortgages. And it's different in so many ways that I am not worried about this market at all. I think spring will tell us a lot, coming up here in a few months as to what the new normal is going to be, but there will be a period of adjustment. But the thing is that, people, when they buy and sell homes, they do it for a reason. They had a new birth, a death, a divorce, a marriage, whatever. And that's not going to stop, regardless of what interest rates are doing or, you know, housing prices are doing. And we have strong employment right now in this country. So I'm not worried about it at all. So let's get into the questions. And see, looks like I have a couple of you with me now. And so what I'm doing today is I am testing this new software that I'm using, EV Look, I've got like a little Brian Roberts Loud&Clear on the bottom. It just did that. It's really cool. A lot of these streaming softwares now that are internet based, that are web based, it can do all kinds of things. I just like literally got into it today. So I'm just giving it a trial run. I can see the comments up there. So that's good. I can see how many people are here. I think I have like a green room that I can invite people to as well. So let's see. So the last video that I published, 3 tips to make real estate photography fortune in 2023. It's done really well. So let me go over some of the comments on this. Al Sarpi, great video. I feel Northern Cal is a sheltered market, tons of opportunities still. Yeah, I actually replied to this. And while I wouldn't know if that's true with a lot of other markets, because this is the one that I'm in, I would imagine that any market that really is dense enough to sustain real estate photography as a profession, there would be other opportunities during a real estate photography slowdown in that market. So, hey, Happy New Year, Carlos, from the farm. What farm is that? The funny farm? Crazy farm? So, Carlos Quintero, everybody, go subscribe to his channel. It's awesome. He has much better content than I do. I'm just a hacking my way through life. Okay, okay, motivational. Thank you for all the people who liked that video. Here's a good one. Jay Phonics, great tips. Really hope to do better out here. I'm a new real estate photographer, and my first 2 property experiences were good lessons. A realtor wanted to convince me to be cheaper than everyone, but I knew better. I've watched several videos from your channel. I must say you've been more informative than most. Thanks. Well, thanks, Jay Phonics. Yeah, that's something that really the family farm, he says, a funny farm. That's something that I really have been consistent on through the years because the race to the bottom helps nobody. It hurts all of us, and this is how we want to make a living. It is a skilled profession, and we can do very well at it unless you're out there shooting houses for $100. There's like a hair on my hat. But if you're out there shooting houses for $100, you're not going to be able to, like, either you're going to be working 100-hour weeks or you're not going to be able to sustain yourself. So yeah, don't ever negotiate price. there are plenty of agents out there that are going to pay your price. The bottom feeders, let them go somewhere else. They're really truly not worth it. You know why? Because those are the ones that are the biggest pain in the neck anyway. They're the ones that are asking you for the images like 3 hours after you left, and they've got like homeowners there and dogs and cars and stuff. Those are the agents that have all that anyway. The ones that are squared away and they have the home absolutely prepped, ready to shoot. The owners are away. They give you a reasonable time because they know that you're going to be editing great images for them. Those are the ones that you keep. And those ones don't haggle your price either. They get it. Okay. Master Troll. I'm curious how you handle bringing on other photographers to work for you. How much of the pie do you give to them? Okay, so that's actually a good question. And I've spoken to this before in that there are a couple different ways that your real estate photography business can be constructed when you're brand new. You have the decision to make whether you are going to be a volume commodity or if you are going to be more of a boutique type of service and do the higher end stuff. That's the direction that I went to very early on. It's more of a personalized boutique type of a service. So I'm using flash ambient. I'm not going out and shooting 8 houses per day. One, because I don't want to, and two, because I don't think any one of them are going to be really all that great, because you're going to have to be working on them, not a lot of time each of them before you deliver it. And that decision um, kind of limits your growth, because you find that your whole business model is very much tied to you, and so I have had and I still do, during the busy seasons, but I haven't found a good way to scale my business in the day to day. And a lot of that is because it's a very personal business. You have these relationships with people. They're used to only dealing with the people that they're used to dealing with. Now, I can bring on the best photographer in the world, way better than me, and photographers that I have brought on are certainly better than me at a lot of things, uh, but it's not me, and that's not to say that I'm anything special. It's just to say that, it's like the way that I've set my business up, I've really put a lot of time into befriending my clients, and looking out for them and being a valuable part of their marketing team. And it's a little bit tough for them to hand that off to somebody, even if it's somebody with my blessing. So, and I did get some pushback when I tried really to jump in with another shooter in addition to myself, like full time, and I was sending them out to jobs. I got a lot of pushback from the regular clients. I said, I mean, it's kind of you that I like, and because the other thing about that is, unless you have a very this is another reason. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but and this is another reason why if you're shooting like HDR, this works better for HDR, being able to scale because with an HDR workflow, it's a lot more trainable and repeatable because you're just taking brackets, and so you can say shoot four corners of a room, shoot, five shot, three stop brackets or whatever, and then when we process them with our editor or we do it ourselves, we're gonna process them this particular way. And if you give several photographers the same type of gear and tell them to do that, their images are going to look darn close to each other, But if you're doing something like I'm doing, where I'm not shooting four corners, I'm looking for interesting architectural details and angles and foreground elements and things like that. And then I'm using lights, and so I'm balancing window exposures with, and so that is a even if you have two people that are very proficient at that kind of workflow, the images are going to be different, but between the two. So I'm not saying that I can't scale. I'm not saying that I won't in the future. I still do use other photographers during my busy season, and I also have other hands on deck when I'm doing commercial video work. But for the day to day real estate photography, I'm doing the vast majority of it myself, with the exception that I outsource all of my stills composite editing just because I don't like editing late at night, and that gave me my life back doing that. So, yeah, that was kind of an $11 answer, but yeah, I haven't I'm not the right person to answer the thing about scaling my business because I haven't really done it. And, and the other thing about that is, my business has been busier than it is now with regard to having other people on board, and I didn't like it as much, you know? I was working just as much, but it was in more of like a managerial type of role and less of a creative one, and I just didn't like it as much, so I'm like, "You know what? I'm just gonna charge more, work less, you know, keep all the money." Um, and that's kinda what I've done, and it's been great. And so, let's see, where are my I got my comments all here. Started Epectase. Epectase. Thanks. I hear you on that. I've started recently my business in Paris, and your videos really hit home. Take care. Well, thank you. Paris. I wonder how the market is in Paris there. Uh, Appreciate the reviews. The R. Oh, I made a video. The Canon R5C sucks. Carlos, you know about the R5C sucking. Um, and Yeah, a lot of people didn't like it. People get like so in bed with everything that they purchase, and if you say something negative about it, their hackles automatically raise, But I don't hate the R5C. Um, I'll probably keep the R5C. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do with it yet. Um, I don't hate it. It's not great. It's not terrible. It does some things better than any other camera on the planet. Most things it doesn't do better than most cameras on the planet. I don't know. It's a strange camera. It's a strange camera. I bought it, kept it too long, couldn't return it. Now it's mine. Am I going to sell it? Probably not because I don't like selling things. It's a pain in the neck, so I'll figure out some way to use it. Okay. A lot of people really really liked that video that I did recently. Okay. Your video changed my choice. I have A7R3 and bought the A7 IV on Black Friday. Was sending the A7 IV back, feeling that there was no upgrade worth the jump in money. Okay, so the A7R3, which is 42 megapixels, and the A7 IV, which is lesser, but the A7 IV is a way better camera. But your video changed my mind. The colors and the menus and tethering is things I need exactly. So with the Sony bodies, the last generation of Sony bodies, okay, so that is the A7 III, the A7R3. I consider the A7R4 that same generation because there was a really big generational jump when you get to the A1, the A7 IV, and now I'm assuming the A7R5, even though I haven't used that one yet. But the biggest difference in those bodies for what I do for real estate photography is the ability to tether with the wireless app. Now you could always do it with the older bodies too, but the Wi-Fi radiatum is not that strong. So when you're inside and you've got like two walls between you, they drop out. Um, they're not that fast in transferring, especially with the R bodies, which are higher resolution. So when you want to preview it on an iPad, it takes a while to transfer back and forth. And it's just, that was one of the real problems with the older generation Sony camera bodies. Now the A7 IV and the A1 especially really fixed that. And so if you're working like I'm working and you're wirelessly tethering, the throughput is way faster, the range is way faster, the app and the camera is just more stable. That whole thing. Like you're not going to drop out at an average size house, especially with the A1. And what's funny about that is I would imagine there would be more people using those cameras, like I'm using them. But that's something that really doesn't get a lot of traction on YouTube. There's barely ever when you see camera reviews is the communications part of a camera, which is important for a lot of work. Rarely ever is that discussed. It's going to be how much resolution it is. It's going to be how many frames per second it can shoot. It's going to be, what the dynamic range is or isn't. It's going to be what the lenses are, but nobody ever really talks about how fast the camera is, what the throughput is with wirelessly tethering, um, if you can modify settings as the buffer is writing. I mean, that's one that the older Sony cameras, I hated that about them. If you were to take, obviously this doesn't happen a lot in real estate photography, but let's say like the A7R3. If you were to take a burst and you'll have like 20 giant files, they're 42 megapixel RAW, and Sony RAW is not very efficient, so they're big files, writing to pretty slow cards. I think that only had one UHS-2 SD card. So especially if you're redundantly writing, you're going to be bottlenecked clearing that buffer to the lesser card, the UHS-1 SD card. And the camera is absolutely locked up while it's writing. So you can't adjust anything. I mean, you could take more shots if your buffer has room, to do so, but you can't change your exposure at all, when it's writing. So, it's things like that. When you see YouTube reviews of these cameras, it's like, why don't people talk about these things? Because it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference, especially if you're a pro out there using these tools, in the course of work, to be able to adjust settings as you've got a bunch of files clearing from the buffer. I mean, it's kind of important. So, okay, so Troy Vicious looks like in the comments here, kind of a common question, but any advice for getting your first clients outside of your immediate network? Um, so my story is that, like I said, and like I've said a lot of times, I was a real estate agent for many years before I started shooting real estate professionally. And so one of the biggest challenges that people have when they're getting into real estate photography is getting those first few clients. I didn't have that challenge because I was already in that world, and so anytime people will ask me that question, and that is a common question, I will first say, I don't feel like I'm really qualified to answer that because I've never struggled to get clients. I was already in that world, and then the first few clients that I got were pretty high producing agents. And when I started to do good work for them, the high producing agents know everybody, and so they started talking, and I work 100% by referral. I don't think I've really ever spent any money on marketing. And that's pretty typical actually for real estate photography. It's just getting those first couple clients, and that's what I'm not particularly qualified to speak on, because I kind of had a built-in audience because I was buying and selling real estate for many years before I got into this business. And so I absolutely understand that that's an advantage that I have, versus a lot of people, who would, let's say, people who were to do the opposite approach, right? Is they're photographers, but they're not real estate photographers. Versus, I know a lot about real estate, but I wasn't a photographer. I learned how to be a photographer, but I already had all the relationships in place, a lot of them anyway, for those first many clients, and then I've grown since then, and taken on a lot more. Home Run Trot. Hey, love the name. Thanks for stopping by. I love your content, Bubba. It's high value and honest. Well, thank you. Thanks for taking the time. Would you share your client your client life cycle process? What do your communications look like from intake through post? That's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. So typically clients will get in touch with me over text. Some of them will call, but only the old salts really call. I have not. I've resisted going to automated scheduling, and I know a lot of people like automated scheduling. I've resisted doing it. Um, And again, it just comes down to, like, kinda how personal of a business real estate is in general. I know a lot of these people, they are way more likely to reach out to you on your phone than they are to pick a box on a calendar on a website. I'm just, I honestly don't know how people who do it successfully do it with this crap. So they'll text me, they'll set up the shoot for whenever, and there is no real normal time frame for that. Sometimes they'll give me a heads up that they've got something coming in a few weeks. Sometimes they'll say, "Hey, we just got into contract in a replacement property. We've got 17 days to get this one into escrow. Can you come out tonight?" Kind of thing. So, but I'd say typically it's within a week of when they want. So my schedule usually tightens up going about a week forward. So they'll text, I'll go out there and shoot. I'll be on site for an hour or two, maybe if it's a big house. I will come back, dump the composites to my editors, who are in Asia, and so they are going to be editing at night while I'm sleeping, which is nice. I will then do some final touches, the morning afterwards, deliver it to them. I use Ario for delivery of my content, and I love the there are a lot of great things to like about Ario, but my biggest thing that I like about Ario is my default method of payment is locked the images are locked down behind a paywall. That is just, you don't have to chase your money. So, I don't know if that's I mean, I think that's what you're asking, typical client life cycle process. I mean, that's they text me, I go out and shoot. Next day, I give them their images, I get my money, and I see them next time. Okay. Aerial motion photography. Hey, thanks for stopping by. I have a question about wide angle lens and indoor real estate video. I have the Canon R6 II and Canon RF 14 to 35 f4. Any tips to fix skewed walls in Premiere Pro? Yes. So in Premiere Pro, there is distortion correction, and I would have to actually look at Premiere Pro to tell you where it is. I think it might be in some of the like within the effects column, there are legacy effects. I think it's in the legacy effects, but it's distortion is what it's called. And so, you can like -3 or +3 or whatever way it is, and you're talking about barrel distortion, right? Within like door frames and parallel walls and everything. And so you can correct that distortion in Premiere Pro. I think it's called distortion. And you can probably even just, search on the Premiere Pro, search box and it'll show you how to do that. It's pretty easy actually. Uh, so the Canon RF 14 to 35 f4, I made a short about that lens. I was using it on the Komodo. I tried it out against the 15 to 35 2.8 RF, and the 14 to 35 felt was not well corrected at all. Now, I'm assuming aerial motion photography that you are employing the in-camera profile corrections for that lens. So if you're shooting not RAW, which I don't think the R6 II shoots RAW, I could be wrong at that, but if you're shooting like a baked-in 10-bit profile, there should be options within the camera body for it to automatically, using its internal profile, correct those distortions out of the lens, and they usually work pretty well. So, you're always going to get a little bit of distortion with a wide angle lens. Some of them are a lot better than others. I didn't like the 14-35 f4. I didn't think it was very well corrected at all, especially compared to the 15-35 2.8. But yeah, so check the camera body, make sure that you've got the profile distortion corrections, and just like crank it all the way up if there's like different levels that you can do. And then in Premiere Pro, I think it's called distortion, and I think it's a negative value that will correct it. Okay. Can you spell the name of that application? Oh, Aryeo, Aryeo. I think they call it Aereo, Aryeo, Aryeo. Yeah, it's great. It's a purpose-built real estate photography delivery platform. Um, it looks great. It works great. It's easy to set up behind paywalls. It spits out all kinds of useful reports. It interfaces with all kinds of different software, everything from banking to accounting to scheduling, and it's really really nice software. And it's made by a bunch of Boston College like whiz kids. Like their CEO is like barely older than shaving kind of thing, and they've raised like millions of dollars, developing this platform, and it's really slick. I'm glad stuff like that exists in the world because nobody likes delivering via Dropbox, and then chasing your money afterwards. This literally it does invoice. I mean, it does everything, and you can automate a whole lot of it. So okay, thanks for tips. Not a big fan of the 1435 so far. Yeah, I wasn't either, but I didn't have it that long, and when I had the 1435, I had it for a short time. Uh, like I said, I was using it on the red Komodo. I didn't have the only Canon body that I have is the R5C. And I've had an R5 as well, but I didn't have the R5C or the R5 at the time. I was kind of building my RF lens collection because I was shooting on the Komodo, and those lenses are amazing on the Red Komodo. So Red Komodo doesn't have any built-in distortion profiles. I would imagine the Canon bodies would do better with that lens. But yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it either. The 1535 is a way better lens. I understand it's a lot more expensive as well, but it just is. That's the one that I would use shooting stills and shooting video for real estate. Okay, home run trot. Thanks, much appreciated. Yeah, no problem, man. Let's see. Let's see what other comments I have here. Okay, so my R5C sucks video, which it doesn't. It doesn't. Like I've said. I'm a happy R5C owner, but also sympathize with your frustrations with this camera. It's funny when the camera was first released, there was quite a few pro videographers that raved about it. Carlos Quintero, for one. Are you still around, Carlos? This guy just called you out in my comment. But when they actually started using it for a period of time, they got really pissed off with its limitations. Looks like the C70 might be the better Canon option at the moment for pro video. But for my 50/50 photos, video shooting needs, I can put up with its limitations. Yeah, I mean that's really the thing. Is the R5C is a great photo camera. There's really nothing wrong with it, as a photography camera. Um, But the biggest frustrating thing to the R5 about the R5C to me is how many how much they've throttled the video features of the R5 by giving it other video features found within the cinema system. Okay, and by that I mean you can't wirelessly tether or monitor in video mode with the R5C at all. However, you can do that in the stills mode. So we know the hardware's on board, and you can do Wi-Fi, you can do Bluetooth and all that because it's you can do it in the stills. Now on the regular R5, you can flop to video mode and you can use the app, the Canon Connect app, I think it's called. Um, and it has pretty good functionality. You can tap to track focus and all this kind of stuff. On the R5C, as soon as you flip it over to the video operating system, Canon has taken such steps to put a brick wall between the two sides of that camera that some of the great features of the R5 and the autofocus system is better in the R5 also in video than the R5C because the R5C has the slower, more antiquated DPAF1 like the C70 has. Um, so it's got worse autofocus in video than the R5. You can't wirelessly monitor it like you can on the R5. And so it's like, okay, sure, it's got all these nice exposure tools. It has waveforms and it has shutter angle, which is cool and everything, but it's a strange camera. So it's funny. I'm actually wearing my Skunkworks hat. So I call it Skunkworks, because it seems like something that was kind of rushed to market in a back shop somewhere. And really it was made, I think, to mostly fix the fallout, the bleeding from the R5 heat thing, which then they ended up fixing with a firmware update anyway. I don't really know what the R5C is. And the bigger problem is I don't think anybody does. It's kinda it's a strange camera, I think for a very, very select few people, it will be the perfect camera, but I really don't think that's most people, I think it's a weird camera to everybody else. Yeah, C70 is a way better video camera in a lot of ways, and, the R5 is a better stills camera. It's smaller, lighter, it's got IBIS on board. Um, what's the R5C? A little bit of both, a little bit of nothing. I don't know. It's not bad. I mean, these are first world problems here. Okay. Place all my presents. Appreciate these videos. Quick note on 15-minute mark. When you talk about receiving clients from online presence, I 100% agree with your answer to meet real estate agents personally, but I've actually found Instagram to be a successful secondary route to find new clients just because it's growing in popularity and more agents are using these platforms more. It's funny how he says Instagram is growing in popularity because that's probably true amongst real estate agents, but these people are typically like 50 or 60 years old. And so for the rest of the world, Instagram is losing popularity to platforms like TikTok and such. But I think a lot of real estate agents are just now discovering there's an Instagram. Okay, Instagram has gained me clients and relationships and will definitely continue. Instagram has gained me clients too. Not a lot, and it goes back to, real estate just being an extraordinarily personal business. And it kind of goes back to one of the other questions that I had on this on this chat here. How do you get those first few clients? You just got to meet them. This is a business where mass marketing, search engine optimization, that kind of stuff doesn't really work for this as well as just going out and getting belly to belly with somebody. Go visit open houses, go do sales meeting presentations. This is something that Jeremy Deal and I disagree on, by the way. He thinks that all he's ever gotten out of sales meeting presentations are people thanking him for the donuts. Um, but I go in to sales meetings. I haven't for a while. I might again, if this downturn, continues for a while. I'll go into sales meetings, and the pitch that I will make the agents is that you do not need me to sell houses. You need me to get listings, you know. And the number one reason that real estate photography exists is to increase the market share of your clients so they can use photographs that you have been shooting of their listings that are now consistent, they're beautiful, and they can show that to potential sellers and say, here's my photographer, this is how we market your home. We have these beautiful photos, we do these 3D tours, we do the videos, etc. That is the value of real estate photographers to real estate agents. The homes sell themselves, because really with the photos, with the photos themselves of the home, the immediate usefulness of those photos to the home that you're shooting is just to get qualified buyers through the front door. That's it. Because it doesn't matter if you have the best photos in the world or the worst photos in the world. When they get there, they're going to have a different experience than what the photos show them. And we always have a balancing act in real estate photography where we want things to be a little bit bigger and a little bit brighter than they actually are, but not so much bigger and brighter that you're pissing people off when they walk through the front door, you know? And it's a fine line, because sometimes you walk into some real dumpy hovels, and it's like, ooh, what am I going to do with this? Well, like I don't want to make that window view transparent because it's just an alley, and some broken down cars out that window. So I'm just going to overexpose and just blow out that window, and you'll end up with some very nice photos of the place. And then when somebody gets there, they're going to see, yeah, it's a little bit darker. And if I look out that window, I see an alley. That's not you misrepresenting the home. That's just you maximizing, what you're hired there to do. Get qualified buyers through the door. but don't overdo it, man. You know, I'm not saying show the alley, but I am saying just don't overdo it. Don't make a regular bathroom look like, a gymnasium, because people are gonna get there and they're gonna be pissed off if you do that, start changing colors on tiles and stuff like that. Just, don't do that. Don't if agents ask you to do things that are a bit unscrupulous, like, hey, can you remove that telephone pole in Photoshop? Don't do that, because you don't want to be named in some kind of lawsuit because a non-local investor bought the home and, sight unseen. People do crazy stuff, especially in the Bay Area where I am. They do crazy stuff like that, and not realizing that it's right next door to a bus stop and then on the other side a power station, because the photographer had edited out all of the undesirable things. So just be careful about that kind of stuff. So, all right. So we've been on for about 45 minutes here. I may have answered, or let's see, home run trot. Another question here. You may have answered this already, but how did you establish your pricing? Do you have any resources that would help someone new to the game price themselves accurately? Um, it's been a long time since I first established pricing. I did it I did a quick informal kinda, look at what other photographers in the area were charging, and I charged a little bit less than that. Um, for me, it worked because it kinda went along with how I'm already friends with these people because I was, and so it's like, "Hey, you know what? Not only are you and I, like, are we tight, but I'll do it for 50 bucks cheaper than this other guy." Now, it's funny that, here I am like 5 years later, and that's something that I always caution people against is not to do that, and that's exactly what I did at first, um, but I didn't but the thing about that though is like I didn't really know as much not to do that at first, and there is something where at first, okay, the level of your work may not command a high price too. And so that's when you have to really look at the level of the work that you're delivering, versus what is average out there in the area. And if it's not up to par, then you maybe charge a little bit less. You get better and and you charge a little bit more. And so, like I said, I caution people against the race at the bottom or undercutting other people now all the time. But part of that too is like I spend a lot of time um on jobs that I shoot, and I've spent years learning how to do this, so with that level of experience and care should come more money, and so that's really what I'm saying, when I say stuff like that about, not a race to the bottom. I'm saying, don't be blowing through 8 houses a day for 100 bucks shooting HDR because that business model is one that's not going to be sustainable versus getting good at what you do and then building solid relationships with people who appreciate that you're good at what you do. And then you can charge much more money. They end up getting much better products. So it's not like they're, getting less value, they're getting more value. Because you're good at what you do and you take the time to shoot their listings, but yeah, I mean I'm kind of talking around your question, but at first that's what I did. I had the relationships. I said, hey, I think like $220 was my first you know, what I charged at first to shoot like an average track film, 220, and I forgot what like condos were. I think they were over 200 because I remember I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to leave the house for less than $200. And my rates now, um, especially for the higher end properties are twice that, and I have no shortage of clients that are willing to pay that. And, that's really because I've created relationships with them, over a long time, and they've gotten they've given referrals to other agents. And, especially when you get in with the high producers or the agents who are known for listing luxury properties. when they refer you to other agents, it's typically birds of a feather. It's other agents that shoot luxury properties, and they're used to paying more. So I do builder work on spec homes where they'll want photography, a video, a 3D tour. It's a giant home. I want to capture it at different points during the day, so I'll be there a few times over a couple days, and I will bill out 2,000, 2,500, and they'll pay it, because they just spent, 2.5 million building the house or whatever, and they know that I've been working at it diligently for a few days, you know. So it really all depends, but your typical agent, I'd say how to do your pricing, it depends on how good your photography is. If you're shooting flash ambient, you're being generous with your time. That's something that on my most recent video I went over. Then you should be making a good wage. This is a skilled profession, and they don't know how to do it. So if you want to make a living at this, you need to get something to do that. Okay, that's really true. I feel like when agents make their pitch to get new listings, it's how they have great photos drawn 3D tour guy. Absolutely. You know, 0.1%, Sergio. Hey, nice. Thanks for stopping by, Sergio. 0.1% of what? Is it are you saying that I'm 1%? As in, I think that's good? Or 1% of agents want to pay? I don't know what 1% means, Sergio. You have to qualify that a little bit. Of the list, 1% of the list. Is that what you do? So is it 0.1% of the list price? Let me figure that out. So would that be like $300 on a $300,000 property? I think that's about right. Yeah, that's interesting. I've seen a lot of ways of pricing before, and I've heard of people doing that. Oh, not you. You don't do it? 0.1%. Oh, you're asking, okay. You're asking if what I'm talking about ends up being 0.1%. Well, let me see. Let me get out my calculator here. I'll tell you in a second. All right. So if I have snow in my market, our typical, we've gone down in price, as has everybody recently. So I would say probably about 850,000 is the typical house price where I am right here, times 0.01. No, that would be 8,500 bucks. I'd love to get that. 50,000 times 0.001. 850. No, that's still way too high. So no, I mean, how would you do that? It would have to be like, that was a tenth of 1% would be 850 bucks. Yeah. No, that's a strange way of doing it, because I mean, well, okay, now that I'm thinking about it more, that would work in places where your average house is like $200,000, because that way, like a tenth of 1% or whatever would be 200 bucks, right? But in my market with $1 million properties are like average here. I shoot them every week, right? That would mean that 1,000 bucks. I'd love to be able to get that, but I think that's a bit spendy. So, all right. So anyway, I'm really stopping the cast now. Yeah. So this is just a test of this new EV Mux streaming software. I looked into a few different ones, is StreamYard and Restream, like and OBX and all that stuff. But EV Mux is kind of a new one. They've only been around since January, and it looks they have a lot of great features. I can stream in 1080p without buying the $800 a year plan like some of them have. It has a huge amount of functionality that I have not even started to scratch the surface of because I just did it today. So anyway, thanks for the few of you that have joined me. Happy 2023. It is going to be a good year for real estate photography. I know that's difficult to see right now, but I think once this market settles and normalizes, it's really going to be good for all of us. This spring is going to be very telling for that. So I'm going to continue making the videos about this, as it comes time. Thanks, Sergio, and all of you who joined, and I will see you again soon. Peace.